Game starts and we both power up. Bill has the initiative, and he's going to get started here in just a moment. Alright, Bill kicks things off by moving Danvers twice up to the left console. There's a console there, and there is the spaceship rubble. He searches the spaceship rubble to attempt to find the Kree core, but does not, and that is Danvers' activation. Back to me. I'm going to activate my Black Widow. She is going to run her very fast speed to there, and she's going to take a second move up to the spaceship rubble and the console, being within one of both, and interact with the rubble, attempting to find the Kree core as well. It's an elusive Kree core. No dice. Her activation's over. Back to Bill. Pretty much a mirror activation with his Black Widow. Same stuff. Gonna attempt to dig through that rubble again. And again, no joy. Back to me. I'm gonna activate my Red Skull. He's going to Cosmic Cube. Takes no damage from it, gains 3 power. He's going to take that 3 power, and he's going to climb up on top of this size 4 dump truck, and he's going to use 3 of that power to master the cube our friend Crossbones, otherwise known as Bones Daddy, up there onto the dump truck. Back to Bill. Black Panther zips forward with his incredible speed. He's a little slower climbing, but he's still got enough pep to climb up there, get on that spaceship rubble, and dig on through. And he is successful, and that is bad for me. Black Panther is one of the best models for picking up stuff and holding on to it in the whole game. It's a bummer he's the one who got it. I would much rather, for example, Bill's Widow getting it or something, but we're going to have to deal with that as the game moves on. And activate my Danvers, my Captain Marvel, I should say. You're going to hear me call her Danvers a lot, so apologies in advance for that. Walks up into into Energy Blast range of Bill's Black Panther, and takes a shot. Bill's Black Panther will have cover due to the fact that he's on that terrain. And that does a total of 1 damage. That ends her activation. Back to Bill. Bill's going to take his Iron Man and just fly him up there onto that building, onto the console, securing it, and ending his activation. Back to me. I really want to put damage on Black Panther here. I'm going to have to pretty much give up on the idea of capturing that left side console this turn. He's got too many models on it. So I'm going to move up my Ultron. Flies over this nice tank here. Lines up an Energy Blast on Black Panther. Pretty similar attack to what Danvers just used. It's got 5 dice instead of 4, but otherwise it's pretty similar. And we do 0 damage, because Black Panther's really hard to kill. Back to Bill. He's going to go ahead and activate his Captain America. And looks like he's just going to double move over there. Can't quite get to the console, but he is close enough to Widow to protect her, which is going to definitely be relevant later on. And here comes my Zemo, another very fast character, arguably the fastest in the game, although maybe Black Panther has usurped his throne, if you will. So Zemo's going to just double move up here, stand on the console, and I don't know, that's not necessarily his role to stand on stuff that close. He's kind of a Alpha Strike long range piece, but gotta do what you gotta do here. Bill's going to activate his Crossbones and dirtle up the field. Not the fastest guy without buffing his speed in some fashion, but he's up there roughly mid-table. Back to me, my Crossbones. It's going to hop off the truck and take position behind the right side tank here, hoping to be sort of relevant to the middle and to the right side of the table. And that's going to be the end of round 1. A lot of moving around and not a lot of attacking as usual. Unfortunately, because Bill got the Kree core, he's going to score 4 points, only to my 2. He gets 2 from the Kree core, and he's holding 2 consoles. I'm also holding 2 consoles. My side, the one near my deployment zone, and the right side of the table, relevant to where I'm sitting. So, started round 2, we've powered up our models. We're going to go ahead and clear off all the tokens. As you can see, they all magically disappear thanks to the magic of video editing. Bill's going to start off because he has initiative, because I activated the last model on the previous turn. And he's going to go ahead and activate his cap and strike Baron Zemo. Zemo ends up rolling a total, it looks like, of 1 defense. Cap, I think, ends up with 2 hits. Zemo's going to take 1 damage from that strike. Cap does it again with a very similar result. Zemo takes another point of damage. And Cap ends his activation. Back to Zemo. I'm a little worried he's going to die here before he gets to do much, so I activate him. And he is going to end up taking a Master Swordsman strike on Widow. Cap bodyguards this, and due to the bodyguard, and Cap's just innate defense, he ends up only taking 1 damage from it. No bleed. And gonna do it again. Cap bodyguards again, and he ends up taking 2. So Zemo ends up dealing a net of 3 damage total to Cap. No bleeds, I don't believe. So Bill activates his Black Widow, and she strikes, which is actually a pretty good attack since it's energy, against other Black Widows. She ends up doing 2 damage to me, and I'm going to end up counter-striking with the power that I gained from the 2 damage that Bill gave me. And that counter-strike is going to end up doing 1 back. And same thing, we're seeing a lot of double activations here at the beginning of this round. His Black Widow strikes me again, deals a point of damage, ends her activation. I'm going to move out my crossbones, and this is a pretty awesome activation if I do say so myself. He has just enough power to do an overpower. Can't do his haymaker buff or any of that stuff. He's going to punch his crossbones, or I think overpower is more like a wrestling move, so he's gonna throw him across the mat, if you will, and throws him into this building, and ends up doing 3 damage, and that's including the 1 reduction that Bill does from Endure to Pain. He also takes a point of damage from hitting the wall, but he endures the pain that as well. So he takes a total of 3 damage after basically being dealt 5, and then my crossbones gets to place within 1 of him right there on the console, up in Iron Man's face. Well, Tony Stark doesn't take too kindly to this sort of treatment. He's going to immediately go ahead and repulsor blast Crossbones, which is unfortunately a pretty effective attack against a Crossbones who only has energy defense 2. This ends up doing a total of 3 damage, and that's after Crossbones endures to pain 1 of the damage off, so it was 4. It's also, he hit the wild, which is going to push me off the objective, so had a lot of big dreams of kind of really holding that objective that way, and they're not really going to pan out, it seems. And he's going to do it again. This one's going to be way less effective, however, and do 1 point of damage that gets removed by a nerd for 0 total. Going to go back to my Ultron. He is going to Energy Blast Black Panther. We are desperate at this point to pop this Kree core loose here, rather than when Black Panther runs it back towards Bill's deployment zone. This is going to do 2 damage. The actual dice rolls were 6 successes versus 4 successes on 6 dice versus 3 dice. So pretty good rolling from both of us. Ended up only doing 2 really ultimately, but I'll take it, I suppose. His next AP, instead of moving up there, I just feel a ton of pressure to actually daze Black Panther here. He's going to do Metallic Fury. And he targets his energy defense, which is the worst defense. That's the option built into Metallic Fury. We're going to end up doing 2 damage to him, which is going to end up leaving him with 1 stamina remaining. I'm going to try to use stamina and not HP or hit points as my nomenclature. That's what it's officially called, but I'm going to struggle with it. So if you hear HP, sorry, I mean stamina. He did pick up bleed, however, so he's on 1 HP and bleed. Black Panther, he sees the writing on the wall. He's trying to dip out immediately. So Bill is going to heal himself immediately, 1 with the console, which is a very common thing to happen in this game and really shapes the direction of this game a lot. There's quite a bit of healing done with these consoles. He's going to shrug stun by spending 1 action point. Or excuse me, he shrugs the bleed. He did not have stun. He's then going to pounce himself off of the building. And the reason he does that is because he spent 1 action point already to get rid of the bleed. But even if he hadn't, he can only move once with a Kree core. So this is essentially bonus movement. So he gets that throw movement, and now he gets his long move, where he's going to move himself into that alley. One thing Bill did not take into account, although I don't think it actually ended up really hurting him here, is that Black Panther does take a point of damage from the Kree core for not attacking at the end of this action. I still think he did the right thing. I don't think he was thinking about it when he did it, but ultimately worked out pretty well. Danvers is going to go and move up onto the console to contest. She is going to spend 3 power to rocket punch his Captain Marvel, his Danvers. This is a risky move, and I think in retrospect, I'm going to really regret it. It's a 7-die attack. If you hit a wild, you stagger somebody. That's a huge swing in kind of a one-on-one fight, especially with 2 of the same characters. Unfortunately, Danvers has a rule where if she rolls wilds, she can cancel your successes. And you're going to see here in a sec what his roll looks like. There's my 7 dice. And some crits that get thrown in. And Bill's taking his time rolling his dice. Here they come. Alright, and there you go. 2 wilds. So he's going to cancel 2 of my hits. So this ends up netting me a total of 0 damage and no staggers. If I staggered her, that's just, like I said, a massive swing. So I think it was probably, in retrospect, it probably was still worth trying. But maybe the best idea would have been doing something else. Maybe strike her and then binary or something like that. I don't know. It's hard to say now. It didn't work, but if it had worked, it would have felt pretty good. Now he's going to activate his Marvel, and his Marvel does the correct thing and takes a swing at me with strike. Captain Marvel's defense is, her physical defense is fairly lackluster. It's just a 3. And because of that, I end up taking 2 damage, and of course he picks up 2 power because it's a strike. And I think Bill thinks if 1 was good, 2's better. Been doing a lot of paired activations, double striking, which you don't see in every game necessarily. He does it again. It's going to end up doing a total of 1. So ended up doing 3 damage total and picking up 3 power. Not bad necessarily, because I don't think she had a lot of power to start with. So my Black Widow is going to heal herself on the console. Strike Bill's Black Widow. That's going to end up doing nothing. I did knock a power off of her, I believe, but that was the end of that strike. His Black Widow counters, and as sometimes occurs, deals more damage with a counter than she would with an attack. Does 2, and dazes my Widow. Real bummer. That ends my activation without spending the second action point. Back to Bill. His Crossbones is going to take a strike at mine. Unfortunately, this is a pretty good roll as well. We're going to end up dealing 4 damage to my Crossbones, which was enough to daze. He then kind of nudges over his Crossbone to the objective, or to his console on his side, and heals himself for 1. At this point, you can see Bill moving kind of multiple guys. He triggered an Avengers Assemble at the end of that activation, so he's going to shove Cap forward, and then also you'll see he's kind of hidden there in the alleyway, but keep in mind, there is a Black Panther now behind that orange-green building. That is hugely relevant because Black Panther has 1 hit point and is holding on to the Kree core. Back to me. This is going to be a complicated activation. Red Skull is going to walk off of the dump truck, leaving an objective, which is not great. I felt like it was necessary, though. So he does that. He is going to end up Cosmic Cubing for power, spending that power to teleport himself, to master the cube himself, I should say, closer to end himself within 2 of my Captain Marvel. Then you can see me kind of pointing at the card. I'm going to use Cosmic Invigoration. That's going to allow Danvers. We spend the power off both characters. That allows Danvers to activate. Because it was the last activation of the turn, she's basically going to chain activate off of Red Skull. She's going to activate, moves onto the console, strikes Bill's Danvers for 4 damage. Pretty good strike. So essentially net, I didn't gain or lose VPs, but I did take a VP from Bill because I'm going to end up throwing her off the point here. And you can see this is the throw. It's going to end up colliding against that tall building, doing another point. So I've done 5 to her. She was unhurt, so she is now on 1 HP. That's the last activation of the round. The round's going to end. Bill is going to score 4 again. I'm going to end up scoring 1 on that left side console. So the score is now 8 to 3, which is real bad news. Got to get that Kree core back this turn. We're going to have some serious trouble. So first activation of round 3, Bill's going to activate his Captain Marvel, who's on 1 hit point. Moves up to the console, binary forms, strikes my Marvel for 1 damage. He's got one last thing he can do, which he's going to pick up that dumpster using Danvers Special and throw it at my Danvers. And that's going to deal 2, which was exactly enough to daze her. So she's going to get dazed here. And pretty good activation out of him. So he also heals himself on the console, so she's on 2 HP now with binary form, and my Danvers is down for the turn. So this Zemo's going to activate. I use a charge, which I don't actually end up moving him with, but the reason I use the charge is I proc the card, or I trigger the tactics card, Battle Lust, which adds your size to your dice. So that adds 2 dice to him. Goes into Widow, so it's essentially going to be a strike, a 7 dice strike into Widow. Cap bodyguards it. He's going to take 1 and bleed. And I'm going to do another Sword Strike. This is going to be with the Master Swordsman rule, so I get to reroll as many dice as I want, minus the skulls, of course. Even with all that, I end up dealing 0 damage to Widow. So not the best Zemo activation, sadly. At this point, Captain America is going to show Zemo how strikes are supposed to work. Deals 3 damage to him and dazes him. With his section action point, he shield bashes Black Widow. I unfortunately managed to misedit the video here. We missed the throw, but he deals no damage to her and throws her into the light post behind for 1 damage total, and then ends his activation, taking a point from bleed because he did not get rid of bleed. So at this point, I'm in serious trouble and I gotta do something drastic. So Crossbones is gonna climb himself up there on top of the console. He's got a bunch of power on him, so he's going to do a Haymaker Overpower on Black Panther, even though Black Panther only really has like 1 hit point. We got to get him. We roll a whole bunch of dice here. You can see there's a lot of dice on the table, mostly mine. Bill decides to use a Recalibration Matrix Tactics card, which essentially rerolls the entire dice pool with no like additional dice modifiers. You just kind of take whatever you get. We reroll him, and thankfully I still kill him, or I still daze him rather. although it was kind of close. I think I only did 2 or 3 damage total. So I thought when he declared it that it was probably a waste, but it almost ended up working out. Thankfully for me, it did work. I throw Black Panther before the damage is dealt, and then I get to essentially, it's that wrestling move, right? So I throw him off, I throw him, and then I jump off the top ropes next to him, and I pick up the Kree core. So that was something that had to happen, and thankfully it did. So Iron Man's up there with line of sight to Crossbones, and he's going to Friday AI and repulsor him for 0 damage. So maybe my luck is turning here a little bit. He does it again with Friday AI for 1 damage, but I inured a pain, so total of 0 damage for that activation. Back to me. My Red Skull is going to activate, walk up onto the console, strike his Danvers, do 0 damage as well. So a lot of posturing and not a lot of damage going on here. So Bill's Crossbones is going to do the same, essentially climbs over the building onto the other side. And he gets within strike range here, does a Haymaker Strike, which I believe is an 8-die attack. And against my physical, he does a total of 3 damage. That's after I inured a pain 1, so he had 4 on the dice, or we ended up with 4 total on his side, minus my successes, but only took 3. Back to me. My Ultron's going to hop up there onto the console, going to use his kinetic field generator superpower to throw a dumpster at Bill's Captain Marvel. This is my best chance to kill her. Her defenses are pretty high because of binary, but that does not work against throws for her dodges. But Bill rolls pretty well and manages to stop 2 of the damage, so only 1 damage goes through. She is now on 1 HP. Ultron heals himself on the console. Now, the last thing he's going to do is a Metallic Fury on Danvers. He targets her physical, because he gets to pick, and that's her worst defense. He deals enough to daze her, finally, and Ultron's going to end his activation. So all we have left is Black Widows. Bill's Black Widow first, pulls out her pistol and shoots mine, deals 2 damage, which is unusual. My Black Widow counters, deals 2 damage back. So, interesting stuff happening. Bill heals his Black Widow and stops shooting because he's afraid of dying. I activate my Black Widow and she flees the scene behind the dump truck holding that console on 1 HP. Does heal herself, so she's now got stamina left. That's going to be the end of the round. I score 3 to Bill's 2. The score is now 6-10. Still probably in a bad spot for me, but maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel. I absolutely had to recover that Kree core, which I was able to do, thankfully. Alright, after we power up and everything, we go ahead and go. Bill's Black Panther starts wailing on my Crossbones. Now, I do want to call out myself here. I did inadvertently cheat on the dice. End up cheating Bill out of a point of damage on accident. Basically, he mantle struck. One of my dice knocked over a skull and turned it into a hit, and I didn't realize or turned it into a success. So he ends up doing 1 damage with the first mantle strike. When I say mantle strike, it's the Black Panther mantle, which lets him reroll dice, and then a strike attack. So he does that twice. He ends up doing a total of 1 damage, but then he pounces on Bones, which is enough to kill him, pop the Kree core out, and recover it. So thankfully, the cheating didn't really matter. I feel bad about it. I'll let him know after, now that I've edited the video and I caught myself. But not a huge swing in the game, thankfully. So here we go. This is where Zemo makes up for himself. He's going to Master Swordsman strike Widow, and Cap's in a bad power spot, or a bad damage spot, where he doesn't necessarily want to take the hit. So Zemo dazes her. Zemo then turns his attention to Cap with a Steel Rush. Cap Vibranium shields. Doesn't matter. Deals 2, dazes him 2. So Zemo went from getting bullied on to turning around and, like that kid in Christmas Story, taking out his bullies. And they're both down, and he's holding the objective. He kind of nudged over a little bit to the console, healed himself for a point. Bill's gonna kind of not decide where he wants to walk. Oh, there he goes. He figured it out. He wants to get up there on top of the building. He is going to fire a Friday AI homing rocket into my Ultron, hoping to probably get some explosive damage on everything. His dice roll is garbage. My dice roll is better than garbage, so nothing happens. He's done. Back to me. Danvers is going to binary form. And she's going to throw Bill's Captain Marvel into a building. And at this point, I'm just able to move off the building, get in range. And this got to do some damage, because that Black Panther's got 6 HP in the Kree core. So with a binary form energy blast, I end up, unfortunately, only dealing 3. He's got 3 left. That could have been a lot better, because he only rolls 3 energy dice and did not have the power to add the 2 dice that he can do from on an injured side of his card. So Bill's Captain Marvel is going to activate, and here is probably the biggest attack of the game. He gets back on the console. He's going to do a Danvers special throw Ultron into Red Skull. Red Skull ends up taking 3 damage. Ultron takes 1. The big attack, though, is right here. Danvers is going to rocket punch Ultron. Only ends up dealing 1 point of damage, but critically deals the stagger condition to Ultron. So basically, I had 2 models that could activate and try to attack Black Panther. It was Red Skull and Ultron, and now I basically only have 1, because Ultron with 1 action point ain't gonna get there. I kind of screwed up the filming here. I apologize. Basically, my Red Skull walked a medium off the building, Master the Cube himself forward, got in a range. Hail Mary, last attack on Black Panther. If I don't kill him, the game's over. I don't kill him. Handshake with Bill. Good game. Reason the game's over at this point is I have no way of popping that Kree core out. So even if I hold all the objectives on the table, Bill is going to score 2, which will get him to 12. I'm not going to get to 12, so the game is just going to end there. If I had popped the Kree core out, Bill only had held 1 console. It would have went to another round, and maybe I could have gotten back in the game. But I had to kill Black Panther there, and he's not the guy you want to be trying to kill in that sort of situation. He is very durable. So really awesome game out of Bill. He did everything right. Had a couple, I think, a couple misplays on my part as well that contributed a little bit, but he played it pretty perfectly. And that's it. That's our first video. It's maybe a little cinematography, maybe could use a little work. Please, we love any suggestions you got. Feel free to comment with those. We're going to be adding some more cool graphics and things to them, a little more fun transitions and things like that. But any suggestions at all for the way that the video came out, any suggestions as far as models you'd like to see played or stuff like that, we'd love to hear it. So appreciate your time. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.